the golden hour, is that you have reframing, mindfulness, and challenge. And the reframe is how then you set the right kind of goal. And then mindfulness puts your attention wholly in the present moment. So then you're completely out of threat mode. That's a huge win. And any kind of tendency to distractedness, you've also addressed. And then the challenge was the actual steps that you go through bit by bit. And there should be a sense of stretching yourself as you go through it. And with reframing, mindfulness, and challenge, then you can go right into flow while working.
Before we get started, if you enjoy these episodes, you might want to check out more at OptimalWork.com. Our website offers unique content, tools, and exercises to help you thrive at work and beyond. We have an in-depth masterclass covering our entire theory of growth, daily recommendations for personalized advice, and a platform to help groups and organizations learn and practice optimal work together. You can get a free trial at OptimalWork.com. Now let's start the episode. Hey, this is Sharif here with another episode of the Optimal Work podcast, joined by Dr. Kevin Majeres. Kevin, it's good to be back here with you again.
Yeah, Sharif, it's been a little bit of a break there, but I'm glad to be back. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, we got to revisit some of our excellent past episodes on the predictions of the brain. So I hope everyone enjoyed those. And I thought it would be good for us, Kevin, now that we're kind of back from a little break, and to discuss and get back to some of the core practices of optimal work and how transformational they are. So I hope you're okay with that.
Yeah, and to discuss also the changes that we've made to the website.
Yeah, some big changes.
You put a lot of work into the updating of the website, and I think it's a pretty incredible upgrade. So it'd be nice if we talk about that.
Yeah, it was fun to actually use when I got to a certain point in development, then you can use the version that's in development to continue the development, and you can experience the improved effectiveness of it. So that was great.
I think that both of us really wanted to create a website that we find transformative for ourselves. So, and that we look forward to using, and I think we've achieved it with this latest upgrade.
Absolutely. So yeah, we'll get into that, and then. But maybe, let's start with some of the background, like the core theory of, I think we wanted to cover projects, how to approach a bigger project, and then golden hours and how to do your best hour of work and the relationship between those two things, and then reframing. And those are kind of the big elements of the site that received the upgrade as well.
That's right.
So where do you want to start then?
Well, we can start with projects. That's probably the feature that got the biggest overhaul. And also, there's something about it that is so crucial, like to what we do at Optimal Work, which is we want to help people to work better. And we want people to be getting better at setting growth goals for themselves in their actual work. Growth goals that change the substance of how they work. So it's not slapping on some like external intention. No, we want really to transform how work itself gets done. And we know that there are so many tools out there that people can use that can increase their productivity. And some of them could be seen as somewhat similar, but none of them really did what we needed, which is to really help people think about growing as they're doing a task. And then to get better, to improve the way they break down the task into steps before they even start doing it. And so that's kind of what projects is all about, is projects lets you shape your work before you start it. So that even if you're not going to be working on, so for instance, I'm working on a presentation I'm going to be giving. And so now I don't actually have to start the presentation, but it helps a great deal to lay out the steps in advance so that I know at what point do I need the deadlines? By when do I need each of the steps? And so I have to talk with the organizers. I have to have a pre-workshop questionnaire that gets sent out. So there's all these pieces. Well, the project allows me to completely shape that in advance. And it can also help me. So you have these two things. You have the growth goal and you have the steps. And that's what projects is for, learning how to shape those two aspects.
Yeah. And it's great to see the interplay between those. I was just talking to a student a couple days ago, and he was working through kind of the way he reads and wanting to improve the way he reads to reduce. He was spending like a lot of time on doing particular readings, and I thought, okay, maybe you're spending a little bit too much time, and also there's not a great strategy for how you're actually remembering the material. So then it's okay for this project, which is doing this reading or approaching the readings, learning material for this class, identifying how you want to grow. Okay, I want to improve my reading skills. Like that's really important. I want to improve the way I take notes, the way I memorize the material. And then that totally changes the steps that he sets when he goes about reading. Whereas before it was just, okay, kind of go through the chapter section by section. Now it involves first he'll think about what he already knows about the material and then identify where he needs to learn more. And then he'll take notes. And then after he's done reading, he'll quiz himself on the material and so forth. So the goal that you have for the project really shapes then the steps that you follow as you go about doing it.
Yeah, that's right. And the other thing is that for every kind of task, so when you're first setting up a project now in OptimalWork, as you well know, we have people describe the task that they're going to be doing. And the more people put into that description, the better. So you can describe how long you want to work on it total, you can lay out some of the important steps. You can be it's just a place where you can throw everything in there. And then what we'll do is we've been training an AI to help us offer growth goals for people. So you can say, suggest a growth goal, and we'll come up with a way that is consistent with our approach to work and the important ways people can grow in working. So then we can offer you a growth goal, or you can come up with your own growth goal, and we will help analyze it so that we can offer you ways of improving it. And this is how now we can train people in setting growth goals. So either you can set it on your own. It's not easy I'll tell you, for it to never have a way of improving it. But I can say this morning, I did get one. I was setting up 2 projects that I'm working on this week. And it is such a huge help especially if you feel like there's overwhelming things you have to do, that you just lay out the projects in advance, and there's so much peace you get from it. So, and as I was doing that, I laid out one of my growth goals, and actually there was not a tweak. So I thought, okay, well, and as like one of the people who designed it, it's good that I'm able to do it. But because I had there a very definite skill that I wanted to be improving that was also connected to the users I was trying to impact through it. So you had this dual thing of a way that I am trying to grow myself, but also that meaningfully touches the lives of others and helps others. So, and we're always looking for growth and service, and finding ways of crafting growth goals that kind of hit both those nails on the head.
Yeah. And Kevin, I wonder if you got a chance to enter in step times for your steps, because that was a new feature that we added. Before we were encouraging people to, in the step name, put little, in parentheses, how many minutes you want to spend. But now that there's like a dedicated section for that, and then it can also track, as you're doing golden hours, which we'll get into, how long you're spending on each step, and see, okay, you're kind of ahead of schedule or behind schedule. And I haven't seen this. I mean, I've, looked at, competitors, you could say, but I've looked at other, to-do list type apps, and I've never seen you be able to enter in how much time you want to spend on each step. And then it will estimate how much time you'll have left for the entire project, so you can plan much better with that. And then also be tracking, okay, are you ahead of schedule or behind schedule? So I found that just super helpful.
Yeah, so I found it to be very good. Not perfect, because I always like to go through and tweak the times. Yeah, because there's so much of a judgment that goes into how much time you want to spend on a step. So, but still, it at least gives you a starting point that, okay, this is roughly how long it thinks that step should take, which is very interesting always. The thing about the steps, we can now teach people how to actually do any kind of work. So if I wanted to take apart, and rebuild my car's engine, In fact, it would give all the steps. And then it's going to be broken down into, some number of steps. But then you can go through and take those steps and then have it suggest sub-steps. And you can just keep breaking it down. So we can actually now teach people how to do any kind of work. So like I was just going to paying my taxes with Quicken. I just gave a few details and it has everything that's there.
It worked.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
That's great.
And then it'll tell you how much time it thinks that this actually will likely take. And so I think that in itself is so cool that if you're not sure how long some project would take, this will at least give you a pretty good starting estimate. But if you want to take only, say, I only want to spend 2 hours on this project, you can state that clearly. And then it should use that to make sure that the whole total, it comes to 2 hours.
Yeah, I mentioned the connection between growth goals and steps, and the AI will automatically do that. So if you've entered in growth goals, like, I'm working on this paper and I really want to improve my research abilities or my ability to make a good argument, then it'll incorporate that into the steps, and it'll, lay out my argument clearly, consider counter arguments. Like it would expand that out into multiple steps, so you could make sure that you actually grow in that way over the course of the project.
Yeah, and to me, this is just the ideal use of AI, which is how do you improve strategies? Because it has access to endless strategies, in its training data. So it's very good at coming up with different strategies, and then you can always tweak. So if you just want to come up with what's the best strategy or what's a new way I could grow in doing this task that I do all the time. So that's a cool thing too. We have a feature called templates, which is a particular kind of project. It's a project that you're going to keep repeating. So, and that allows you to save the project as a template. But then every time you do a new project from that template, you can set new growth goals. You can experiment with new ways of doing it. So you're always thinking strategically about your work and how to leverage it for your own personal growth. So everything in OptimalWork is aimed at helping people bring their ideals into their next hour of work. So projects is one way of doing that in advance. Yeah, and I think it's such a powerful way of thinking about working that literally no one is teaching people. So it seems to me that you don't really learn how to take better notes, how to read better, how to improve your crafting of arguments and writing an essay. But we can actually give people now real advice on how to do that. But then you can also, once you've set up the project, you can use it for a golden hour.
Before we continue, a brief message. If you're benefiting from these discussions, please take a moment to hit like and subscribe. Doing so helps us to reach more people. So you're not just learning, you're also helping others to discover a path of growth and flourishing. Thanks for your support. You mentioned this thing of growing in your work, and you mentioned these skills in particular. And earlier you had mentioned how to connect that to being of service to other people.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you could just briefly expand on the importance of that, because I think we have this ideal at OptimalWork that, making your work be of service to the purpose of my work is to be of the greatest service to others, is a question that we often ask the people who use OptimalWork. And then just connecting that with the skills portion and growing in skills. I wonder if you could just draw that out a little bit.
So when you're talking about work well done, you can analyze it from an Aristotelian point of view. So you are the efficient cause. You're the agent who's actually doing the work. The skills that you're bringing into the work, those are the material cause. That's the matter. So that's the actual work itself, the steps themselves. So in a way, each step, getting good at that kind of step, there's a skill involved. So that's the material cause. The ideal is the formal cause. So you could think of the skill that you bring to your work, that you're trying to, say you're running a meeting, you want to get good at eliciting the opinions of everyone. So one of the skills is then really actively listening to the people there. So that would be like, that skill is like the body. But the ideal of being more caring and understanding and thoughtful, that's like the soul. So these two go together. So, you always have to, in fact, have both of them. If you just had like the mechanical thing with no ideal behind it, it'd be lifeless and dead. It'd be like a machine. Unfortunately, a lot of our work today that people do, they do it in a mechanical way. It's as if there's a disconnection between the substance of the work that they're doing, which is where the skills come in, and then the higher ideals that should be enlivening it. And then the final cause is actually the service you're giving to others. So that's the ultimate reason for the work that you're doing. Because if it wasn't a service to others, there'd be no reason to do it. Aristotle says that the final cause is a type of formal cause. And here, doing things for the sake of the bonds, for the sake of love and charity, that's the bond, but those are also a kind of ideal, the highest of the ideals, actually. And so all work can have these elements. You have the material cause, which is the matter itself of the work. You have the formal, which is the ideal behind it. And then the final, which is the ultimate reason for doing it. Now, we don't actually lay this out on the website anywhere, but it's built into everything that this is what it takes to do work well. So you're thinking about the technical proficiency with which you're doing it, but you're also thinking of the ideal that you would like to inform, and that's what helps you to grow the most. And then you're always maximizing the service you're giving to others, because ultimately that's what every ideal is about. It's about the bond you have with others. So that's a big overview. I hope that answers your question.
No, that's great. That's very beautifully put and very deep and philosophical. So it's great when Aristotle comes up. No, it's very interesting to illustrate that. I think you did that. They impact each other. You need skills to be of service to other people, because if you can't do anything, then you can't really serve anyone. So having the skills is really helpful, important to being able to serve. But then having the motive of service enables you to really develop the skills better. It gives you a motive, a purpose, a drive that then helps you. So it's a very nice virtuous cycle. And
that's exactly what it is.
I think you illustrated that well.
Yeah, so the optimal work is essentially taking the whole Aristotelian framework of what does excellence look like, and then helping people to develop that in how they approach particular tasks, which is projects, and how they approach the next hour of work, which is the golden hour.
Yeah. So, okay, I feel like you subtly included that last bit about the golden hour as a way of pointing us in that direction here. So I think maybe the next thing we could talk about is some of the updates we made to the golden hour. And I think the biggest thing on the website is the ability now to see just the one step you're working on at a time as you're working through the golden hour. So before you would see all the steps of the project. And now it's just, okay, this one step gets my whole attention. So I don't know, Kevin, maybe we could start with a little bit of what is behind the thinking behind the golden hour. And then in particular, this idea of the importance of giving your undivided attention to one step at a time.
Yeah, that's great. So if Optimal Work were a gym, the golden hour would be the main exercise.
The squat.
Exactly. Yeah.
Squatting.
Yeah. Yes. So the golden hour is the exercise that ideally brings everything together. So, and because it's the closest to reality. With projects, you're setting things up in advance. The purpose of that is that eventually then you're actually doing the work itself. But our real goal is that people learn to stretch themselves according to their highest ideals as they're doing this hour of work, their next hour of work. And where we want to shape people the most is just when they're starting their next hour of work. And so Optimal Work can accompany people at that crucial moment, right when they're beginning a task, to show them all the transformational power of that. So what we went through a lot of different kind of prototypes and working through how we wanted this to be. And where we ended up is first let people set up the task by laying out the steps that they're about to do. And if you're doing it from a project, then you can just get those right from the project. And then what makes it the key thing in the golden hour is you can prepare your mind. And that means being able to, if you would like, go through setting up a perimeter so that you're signaling to your default attention. What exactly is it you want to be doing and for how long? So that setting up a perimeter, especially, I think this is especially true for students, that is one of the most crucial steps. And then there's reframing and mindfulness. So the reframing uses our own trained AI to help people with all of the theory of optimal work, think about how to face the challenge of this next hour of work in a way that they see as an opportunity, so that they're enthused about it, that they're excited about growing in some definite way. So the reframer is meant to be a dialogue exercise to help identify particularly what's the challenge the person is most reluctant to engage in this next hour of work. And then we're walking them through seeing how that's giving them an opportunity to grow. So that reframer is so powerful, to be able to use our own optimal intelligence to help people. And that's the thing that we are only going to get better and better at doing, and kind of at equipping people. But even now, it's one of my favorite aspects of doing a golden hour now, is that you end up looking for what's the biggest challenge in this next hour, just to make sure that I'm thinking of it in terms of an opportunity. And then we also have mindfulness exercises, which you can do for 1, 3, or 5 minutes.
And so for just to touch on the reframer a little bit, you would recommend, so that I guess the kind of paradigm case for this is that, okay, someone's dreading the upcoming task. Maybe it's something they've been putting off. They're really not looking forward to this for whatever reason. And so what the reframer is going to do is help them to uncover the opportunity for growth, learning, practice, service, to bring the ideal, identify the ideal that's like you put earlier, like the soul for the work. But you also kind of mentioned that it's also a way to just maximize your growth in that hour. So if you're actually already enthusiastic about the work, it's still worthwhile to identify in advance, well, what is the biggest challenge so that I can deliberately lean into it? Is that right?
That's right. And the reframe gets at the intention that you're is, why am I doing this work? What is my goal in this task? What we're trying to do is shift people from having a goal of simply getting things done, which is more like that soulless technical way of working. I think of as work as usual. Because if we don't deliberately try to set an intention, we don't really make our work human. So we're not really humanizing it. So we need to be thinking of how we can grow and how we can love others by working well. And that's what we're trying to help people to do. So there is this sense then of, we sometimes deliberately, even if we're enthused, we have to be careful that we're not just doing it to get it done because we're enthused about the outcome. So it's about to make a golden hour means that you're truly aiming for the kolan, the beautiful, the noble, the fine, in this hour of work. That is actually the highest, that's getting into then like the highest ideals with which you can live and work. And that's what we want to bring into each hour. That's the real goal.
That's great. And then maybe we could just talk briefly, because you mentioned the mindfulness piece, and we added, different lengths so that you can. I did some research, and I think people like the shorter lengths too. So it's fun as you get longer. More people like the shorter ones. Or do them. But I think actually a good reason for that is, and what I would recommend to people is, for your first golden hour of the day, you can do the longer one. And then that really sets this, gives you some momentum and clarity for the rest of the day. And then the subsequent hours, maybe just do the 1 minute one. And then maybe your first golden hour after lunch, you could do a longer one. And then for subsequent hours, do shorter ones. So we wanted to give people that option as well. But then and that connects to attention and giving your full attention to just this one step, which is like the biggest change, I think, in the new golden hour.
The two crucial things that allow you to have intensity in your work. One is the act of laying out steps, breaking down what you're about to do into steps. And the other is deliberately slowing the breath. and attending to it. Those two activities specifically activate your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. When that is like a regulator of attention, when that part of your cortex gets fully activated, now your task attention can get to basically 100%. And the background processor can go quiet. So the ideal thing is for people to be able to self-diagnose the state of the regulator. Do they feel right now as they're sitting down to work that they're getting pulled in many different directions? That's a sign that the regulator hasn't activated. So just laying out steps already activates that regulator. And if they still need more because their mind is still jumpy and they can tell that they're going to be pulled many different directions, or they're ruminating or worrying about something, then you need to do just even 1 minute of mindfulness can help. But 5 minutes was also fantastic. It kind of depends on, people should know, how much do I need right now to successfully settle my attention, to turn on that regulator so I can engage the task with as close to 100% intensity as possible.
Yeah. With the steps, one thing that I like of the new version is the ability to, which I have this happen from time to time. I'm working on a particular step, and then I check it off, and then I get the next step, and I'm like, oh, I can't do this one. This is way too hard. This is too big of a step. This is too long. This is the one I've been dreading. And then now there's a little button in the upper right of the step that you can click to break it down more. And then you just go through that exercise of, okay, take this big step that I was dreading, that this would be the step where I might be tempted to like distract myself by checking my email as soon as I get to, okay, I'll just break it down into 5 smaller steps. And then, okay, now I can just do that. And that's much easier. So that was a huge help.
Yeah, that's great. If the golden hour, the way we always traditionally explained it, is that you have reframing, mindfulness, and challenge. And the reframe is how then you set the right kind of goal. And then mindfulness puts your attention wholly in the present moment. So then you're completely out of threat mode. And so that's a huge win. And any kind of tendency to distractedness, you've also addressed. And then the challenge was the actual steps that you go through bit by bit. And there should be a sense of stretching yourself as you go through it. And with reframing, mindfulness, and challenge, then you can go right into flow while working. And I think that this new golden hour tool accomplishes all the same things with even less friction. And so it'll just help people to naturally go into their highest ability to work. So we train people to enter flow at will.
Yeah. Well, Kevin, I think that's a great note for us to end on here today.
All right, Sharif. So we should mention though, because we haven't mentioned it yet, the new reframer, if you go to tools and then you'll actually go to reframer from there, that's actually a different algorithm, than the one right before in the golden hour. So that is going to become eventually much more central to optimal work itself. And you'll be able to, but already it's the most advanced assistance we give people. It's the most trained AI that we have that has the most things put into it and the most like specifying and training that you and I did. So I'd love for people to try out the new reframer tool, and give us feedback. Actually, anyone listening now, you can help us enormously, even if you just do the free trial on Optimal Work, but to be trying out these tools. But especially, I'd love for people to try out the reframer and to put it any challenge you're facing, and then see how I think it is super effective at helping people turn that challenge into growth. But in anything we've talked about today, we would love to get feedback, right?
You can always email team@optimalwork.com.
Yeah, and we do take all feedback very seriously.
Yeah.
And we would love to see our product as something that is the fruit of collaborating with our beloved users. So we have fantastic users, and we are honored that we're like part of helping like their growth, and we have so much enthusiasm from the people who use Optimal Work. But we also want to be making sure that everything is a home run for people. So
that's exactly right. Well, thank you to people using OptimalWork.com. Thanks to people listening to this, and thanks to you, Kevin.
All right. Thank you, Sharif.
All right. We'll be back next week. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. If you enjoyed our conversation and you're looking for more in-depth guidance, check out OptimalWork.com, our unique platform that delivers content, tools, and exercises to help you thrive at work and beyond.